we're human beings, not human workings, right? We're supposed to be. Now with AI, we're out of that. We can literally be people. We can be creative, go to the beach, breathe. Why do we want to work? Like realistically, why do we want to work? The reason you want to work is purely for financial gain.
You know how much hype has been created around AI. So the issue is, are we leveraging it enough? Especially us Africans who are still way behind. So let's hear from these young people who have decided to go AI full blast. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So LLM is just large language model. It's an AI that uses words to speak to people.
Less than 1% of the data that's trained for the large language models, your GPTs, less than 1% is African data. And you know what you find is in South Korea, Japan, they are all also creating large language models that are sovereign to their
own
their nations. That it's very important that Africa has its own.
The more contained your LLM is, the more accurate it is. There's less hallucinations. It's more accurate, more factual, more precise.
We started developing our own large language model. We've developed Alabulan, which is the large language model. So one of the first in Botswana, one of the first in Africa.
Africa AI readiness is the worst in the world. Botswana, Oxford AI readiness assessment. Botswana scored 120. Readiness, we're talking data centers, infrastructure, everything, people knowledge about AI and so forth. So there's a whole comprehensive assessment that gets done. So I'm feeling for you in terms of the heavy lifting. So I'm busy looking at the business model. There's a very strong social entrepreneurship aspect of it. Mm-hmm. But who's going to put that money on that?
They are driving for profit. We're driving for impact. Let's help our people. Like we need to get into the race. I know they say public-private partnerships, but it should be public-private youth partnerships. So the belief in Botswana youth. The truth is we don't believe in ourselves. They don't believe in us either. If we were to sell, here's we draft can do this laws for Botswana, they'll be like, let me just call these guys overseas.
Welcome to the GrowthWell Podcast, where we tap into a well of knowledge, innovation, and leadership to fuel Africa's growth. Here, we explore thought-provoking insights and expert knowledge that empower individuals and businesses to thrive across the continent. Whether it's personal development or professional advancement, our conversations inspire action and impact. This is GrowthWell, where ideas flow and growth begins. Let's dive in.
Well, we're back with GrowthWell. Welcome. Sidi Basametsi Amolemo. If we translate, we're saying the water from the well that feeds you well. So welcome to this episode. And this episode is quite different. I bring you the youthful exuberance of these young men who are going to be discussing tech startup in Africa, specifically here in Botswana. So let's get going. You know how much hype has been created around AI globally, continent to continent. It's almost being compared with the start of electricity in terms of a revolution. So the issue is, are we leveraging it enough? Especially us Africans who are still way behind in terms of development, for which tech is extremely important. So let's hear from these young people who have decided to go AI full blast and see how the experiences have been like. So, Tabi, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Monty, you've been here before. Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. Okay, and congratulations, Tabi. I know this is the first time on the podcast.
Yeah, no, it is. On any podcast, really. Like a video recording podcast is the first one.
Yeah, you've been resisting.
Yeah, I have been resisting the urge, but quality podcasts call me.
Yeah. Chama boy. Welcome, guys. So just to start off, I think let's just get the viewer to appreciate who you are in an abridged format in terms of, obviously, ultimately, you're in the AI business, and we're going to talk more about your startup, which is Orion X. So let's talk to the viewer about individually who you are, why AI, how did the journey lead you to the AI space? Maybe we start with you.
All right.
Tabi.
So me and Motheo are very close friends, like best friends, basically. And our journey, well, really my journey started in software. I started a company called Digital Natives. We specialize in, private and public entity development. We hadn't dabbled into artificial intelligence. Back in the day, it was, chatbots and, dabbling in that space. We did websites and mobile applications for private companies such as BIHL, your local enterprise authority. And there are some products called Get It Done, which won awards in Mauritius. And as well as in the SADC region, we built a KYC platform that placed first in the region of SADC.
Wow.
So
congratulations for that, by the way.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And then now we're obviously getting into the artificial intelligence space. And we're trying to be like Africa's first LLM, which is what we're going to get into in detail as we go in here. And by this, we mean built from the ground up.
Excellent. I can't wait. By the way, you graduated with which qualification?
Mechatronics.
Mechatronics.
Yeah.
What the hell is mechatronics?
So it's electrical, mechanical, and computer science merged into one. Okay. So basically what happens there is you have multiple disciplinaries into one, only because I didn't want to stick to specific mechanical or electrical. I wanted to be an inventor. My role model has always been Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, okay.
So he's been like a Renaissance man to me. Like he's able to do and produce so many things. And I asked my mom, can I go and apply to be an inventor? And she's like, there's no such thing.
There's no course like inventor.
So
that's how you ended up with mechatronics.
Yeah.
Okay, so mechatronics is like, and I think it's very important for some of our viewers who are also thinking, what am I going to do at university? Yeah. And you say you wanted to inventor. So you went for a course that's sort of an aggregate of electronics, electrical engineering,
computer science.
Me asking you when I'm an engineer. I just wanted it for the viewers. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, Monty?
Mechatronics is engineering.
It is, yeah.
No, I'm just making sure that we understand that it's in mechatronics and engineering.
Economists might get lost here and there. But No, welcome, Monty. You are back. You are back, and we'll touch on some of the updates in terms of some of the stuff you've done in education, and obviously now jointly owning a company with Mthabi. And just remind the listeners in terms of, again, where you're coming from.
I'm coming from here, but I've done stuff. My first initiative was the Grey X Group companies, which I've started a few which have failed and a few that have actually succeeded. And the two that have succeeded, I exited. So, which was Grey Menu, which was the QR code restaurant management system for when they order, they can order from the QR code. Started this in the UK when I was at university, and then exited. And then Grey Techno, which was an agri-tech company that specialized in crop monitoring sensors. Started that as well here, actually. But there was no market for it. So then when I went to university in 2020, I started it there as well, and there was a market. Luckily, I was in the region where there are lots of farms in the southeast. And also I exited that as well. And then after that, I started investing in a few startups in Europe and Silicon Valley. And then I started Grey Ed, which is an edtech company that uses...
education tech. Right?
Education tech.
Okay.
Yeah. And I started it because I'm dyslexic. And when I was 5, 6, I struggled with reading, writing, language processing, etc. So I noticed that, I went to Thornhill, and I wasn't really improving. I was always at the special needs department. I lived there and nothing was happening. But then I got my parents got, one of my parents, and the other parent.
Called mother.
Called the mother, yes. Got me as a tutor specializing in neurodivergent people, so ADHD, dyslexia. And I saw him about 4 hours per week after school. And my language processing exponentially increased. My reading speed, spelling, writing, all that, phonetics, pronunciation, everything increased drastically. So when I look back at it, I realized, when you personalize the education experience for students, they can actually take in more in less time. So that's what Grade does. We use AI to hyper-personalize education for students. And we also have, because we are in a mental health crisis, so we also developed an emotional large language model as well. One of the few to do it, companies to do so, and also to use the phrase emotional large language model. And started in the UK, now I brought it here, and it's exciting. We'll talk about the updates later. But yeah, that's me. And now I started Orion X with Mthabisi, and we'll get into that as well. But yeah, and I do a lot with AI, I do a lot with tech, but my formal education is in economics.
Excellent. No, that's great, Monty. I mean, a lot of lessons there. I like the way you just mentioned exited, like as if you just did. It's just like a normal thing, Yeah. And it's interesting when we interviewed Arun. I mean, the same thing. He's also, had companies exited, went on. That's part of the entrepreneurial journey, isn't it? You got to learn. Some of the teachings that I always tell youngsters is that never hesitate to quit. Sometimes
exited
you get stuck
means
you
sold it. You got acquired.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Quit meaning deciding to exit or deciding to actually close when it's not working. So that's still a very good decision.
Yeah.
You don't have to get stuck up with something.
Yeah.
Now, I always start this with a very light moment, guys. So one that I thought before we started here was, as you're aware, I used to attend this entrepreneurial coaching program in Canada called Strategic Coach. And our main coach there, Dan Sullivan, used to spend a lot of time with the younger people. And he's an elderly guy. He's now 81 this year. And he used to say part of his boosting his own level of excitement and new things to spend a lot of time with young people.
Oh, wow. That's a
and one thing thing that I found out is like, you guys, whenever I'm with you guys, there's so much noise, so much idea, so much, it's such an energizing thing for someone who's older. We were talking earlier about how when you're young, the experts call it the fluid intelligence, where you're full of ideas, flexible, a lot of smart things that come out. But as you age, it's more wisdom. It's more using the stock of knowledge that you've acquired over the years, now using it in a very clever way. So it's different level of intelligence as you grow. So it's just interesting that, but the other thing that I also find is that it's also good for youngsters to spend time with the older guys, the elderly people in their 60s and their 70s. Again, just to pick old wisdom. So this is something that I just wanted to share with our audiences, that it's always a healthy thing. Because for us, we didn't have that opportunity because unfortunately our elders were very
traditional culture.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
I pain when now we have to bury them. I buried, a couple of my uncles and aunties, and you can see in their deathbeds that they're like, sheesh, now they wanted to really chat with you, find out more about you, but then it's late. So that is why when and I know I have to qualify that with your Orion X, obviously, we've also invested in it so that we make sure that I qualify that for the audience in terms of the interest. So let's, so I don't know what you think about that in terms of just spending time with all. Are we boring or are we?
I don't know.
Or do we add value to your lives? That's really the point.
You definitely do. So
generally, I'm not talking about myself. Just generally, when you have a chat with your uncles and older entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs that have been around the block a couple of times.
So just to even give a little bit of prehistoric context, right? Something that I forgot to mention is I do sit on the board at Stanbic, and I'm the chair of the ICT subcommittee. And being on a board generally means you're going to be around old people.
Careful, I'm here. Carry on.
No, and honestly, something that we always take for granted, and I know it sounds crazy, but that wisdom that an adult has, it's so valuable. And a lot of the times we take it for granted because we're like, but I know better. I know what you're saying. I hear you, but this is AI. It doesn't follow the same rules as what an adult who has no experience in that space does. But we have to understand that the baseline principles, that resilience, that tenacity, that calm, focused approach, the deep thinking, the deep reflection, that in itself is what we get. At least I get a lot from on the board in terms of that perspective. But then in a general, speaking to family and uncles, they have a wealth of knowledge. I have a specific uncle that loves speaking about the history of Botswana, why something called kgalagadi, you know, where it's khadi meaning like the
dryness,
dryness, and like the concepts of like we came from Sudan area, like Kalanga, the people of the sun, Kalanga, like Langa meaning sun. So it has all that context, and like that's how we came down in a great migration, and that all Botswanas are actually foreigners to Botswana. The only indigenous people are the Khoisan.
The San people.
So like everybody is a foreigner in that regard. So like there's a lot of that context that I gain and understand and learn, and there's no reason to be divided.
Yeah, getting some wisdom, young man.
So
you say it's really good for you. You enjoy it.
I love it. I love it. I'm blessed to have engineers as uncles as well. So, they do have these like very deep conversations, very intentional. Even the arguments are really around like concepts of origin, concepts of philosophy or ideology and tradition. Why this versus that? How we do this and how we do that. So I really appreciate it, honestly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You want to add a bit, Monty, on that?
Yeah, I think it when an adult is open to ideas, open to conversation, open to dialogue, basically, then you do gain a lot from them because they have a lot of experience, so they can tell you how things actually work in the real world from experience, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's very interesting, because you think the world works one way, and then they'll come and say, no, this is actually how it works, and then they give you advice and things like that. It's quite it's like a shortcut in life, you know. So it's yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, back to the subject, guys, and AI is the broader subject. We'll come back to Orion X, but as I said at the beginning, it's creating so much hype, everywhere. All sorts of experts, from your Peter Diamandis and Mene Salim. We brought Salim here 2 years ago. He's one of the gurus around AI. I know we met Salim. We even had a chat with him when he came here, who's a former vice president at Yahoo, and now chairman and founder of OpenExo. And we continue to converse with him. And it's been said by statistics that, on an annual basis, AI should be dropping about $4 trillion every year onto the global economy in terms of GDP. So the issue is, from your involvement, from your, being the practitioners in the space of entrepreneurship, is this attention deserving? Do you really believe that AI, is it a hype? They talk about dystopia and utopia. Is it more of the other, or we got to watch? Anyone can start.
Yeah.
I think it's underhyped.
It's underhyped.
I think it's severely underhyped.
Yeah.
Because the implications of AI are literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Think about it like this. If we're saying that this is just as big as when we discovered electricity, and that's a huge thing. It's not something that's trivial. So, and then you hear the noise now, it's like, the electricity was quite a big thing, it powers things, and yet it doesn't feel like there's a lot of noise about AI if we're taking in that context.
Okay.
So I think it's severely underhyped. Everything is going to change quite drastically. And in terms of whether it's good or bad, both scenarios are very possible. Because good actors will use it for good, bad actors will use it for bad. They'll always exist. But I believe that the good actors will always outpace the bad actors. That's my belief. But in terms of the implications, everywhere from education to healthcare to the structure of the economy, the discussion on universal basic income has increased now, and the debates because of AI, and robotics, advancement, etc. And everyone's afraid of jobs. Job loss, etc.
Which is the unfortunate part.
Jobs will be lost, especially in Africa, where a lot of people are doing jobs that can even be automated without AI, just basic automation. But there'll be a net creation of jobs. There'll be more jobs created than more jobs lost, and we don't even know what jobs will be created in the future, because we're discovering the implications as we go.
Mm.
You know, it's very different. There are many predictions for the future, and you know, we don't know what's gonna be it.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important part to remember is that, you know, the future doesn't happen. We create the future.
Sure.
So it's up to us, you know, to create the future that we want.
Yeah.
So that's
Which brings a lot of questions around Africa's preparedness.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about underhyped, but the issue is the underhyped more exaggerated from an African context? Because I read the statistics who said a few hundred millions of the 1.3 billion Africans never heard of. Yeah, it's still now.
Yeah.
You know, these are from reputable sources. Yeah. So just your take, Mthabi.
So like I echo Monty's sentiments in the sense that it's both a good and a bad thing, and also being underhyped. I think the context is how it is being hyped, right? The way people currently speak about AI, it's more on ChatGPT. It's more on image generation. It's almost like a hobbyist product, you know. Oh, I can write a blog, I can write an email, I can, you know, generate a picture of my girlfriend or something like that, you know. Very hobbyist kind of behavior.
Recreational type thing.
So corporates and large entities are like, what value can I really derive from this? So the artificial intelligence is a very broad topic. What we're seeing is a subset of that broad topic, which is the large language models. What you then realize is how we use it as Africans can determine whether or not we will be digitally colonized, or like basically a new type of colonization, or we will be our breaking point. Africa in the past has leapfrogged technologies from no phones to cell phones. Other entities went to landlines, and then from landlines, they went to cell phones. We skipped the landline phase. Although, yes, some African homes do have landlines, but a lot of people leapfrogged it. So the same with comes to technology. Yes, we may not have digitalized a lot of our technology, but we can leapfrog very quickly into utilizing AI to optimize, enhance basic processes. Another thing is like that fear that people have of being replaced by artificial intelligence. So the biggest indicator that I'm seeing is because there's a lack of understanding. Fear comes from lack of understanding.
That's true.
I genuinely believe it's not to do with the fact that AI will take your job. It's to do with how does it improve your life. When Google was coming and was able to search for everything, did librarians get scared? You know, when the printing press was invented, the people who used to spend hours and hours, you know, bring those things together, even sewing, there's so many industries that have been disrupted in the past, and so many more jobs that were created after that. Same with artificial intelligence. In my mind, moderation and management of these things, like review. When an AI gives a result, a human being reviewing that is already a job in itself. It may seem very simple, but then again, it's supposed to be. We're human beings, not human workings, right? We're supposed to be. The nature and the industrialization that took place created jobs, created schools like the outdated school system. It created all these systems based off a historical and prehistoric structure. Now with AI, we're out of that. We can literally be people. We can be creative, go to the beach, breathe. Why do we want to work? Like realistically, why do we want to work? The reason you want to work is purely for financial gain. If everyone was to get $1 million bula every month, no one would, they would just want to do fun things like play soccer, go with their friends. No, really, like you wouldn't want to do anything. Some people find meaning in the work that they do.
That's true. That's what I wanted to challenge you about. Yes.
Yeah, some people find meaning.
Waking up in the morning and doing something.
Yes.
Apart from the money.
But then that something does not need to be a job. It can be a hobby. It can be an activity. It can be a creative task.
An extension of what you really like doing.
100%.
Not something that you have to do.
Yes, not something that you're obligated to do. Something that you've chosen to do.
I got you.
And on a regular basis. And yes, some people's jobs are that. But I'm just saying that the ones that are being replaced are most likely the ones you did not want to choose. You didn't wake up in the morning, hey, one day I want to just send emails. I don't think so. I don't think you wake up in the morning like, you know, I love sending those emails, man. Those emails are the best. That kind of buzz, like,
man,
you know.
I know how I'm going to structure it differently this time.
Literally, you see that attachment, it was 5 megabytes. So people won't be doing that. So like, I feel like we just have to realize that machines are good at repetition, and what human beings do on a day-to-day to live is repetition. So keeping the lights on. So you
reckon there could be, on the utopia side, there could be more fulfillment
100%,
of life?
100%. Like we just need to position it correctly, there's going to be bad actors, there's going to be a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of red tape that's coming up before the product exists.
That's right.
My advice is policymakers, make it with us. Don't make it before us. Like, don't inhibit growth before it happens. All the biggest entities, Americas, UKs, Russias and Chinas, they are like, first break the toys,
bring the regulations,
and then we'll bring the regulations after.
Data Protection Act before we even.
But in Africa we love the regulations first, isn't it?
Yeah.
We run to, because is it easier? Why do we run to regulation before innovation? That's a nice line.
I think it's fear. It's fear.
You know what I mean? Like I said,
it's much more
the industry is not mature.
Yeah,
and then we put regulation before, like you said, we can experiment, make mistakes, all that jazz. Yeah, you say, Monty?
It's much more difficult to make the product and make a product good than to do the regulation. So, and the industry does, for example, in Botswana, we don't have much innovation, but the policymakers already, they exist. So they're going to make regulations. But the industry, usually technology is developing faster than the regulator can keep up with. But in Africa, it's the opposite. Regulation is moving faster than the technology. And that's because the environment for the technology innovation does not exist. And they make it very difficult for it to exist. We'll get into, like, for Orion, when we're raising funds for investors, we're not doing it here. It's not the Botswana entity, it's the UK entity.
UK registered, yeah.
Because it's just too much red tape here. Way too much red tape, and it's unnecessary.
And like, you see, the thing is, I believe that we're quick to say no, but I have challenged this and mentioned this a few times to say that policymakers, when they say no to something, let them write a page as to why they're saying no. If they have to write that one pager to explain why they're saying no to it, there's a lower chance of them saying no.
You reckon? You know what my belief has been? It's been that, having dealt with bureaucrats of Kama Crescent for about 30 years now, is that when they really show off how they went to school and they're really putting their best intelligence, is when they describe to you why something cannot be done.
Yes.
That's when they are really glowing.
I think
they're telling you. They'll give you a 15-minute beautiful fact-based speech about why that's.
Because that's a brilliant point as well. Because what I'm looking at is in the sense of, let's say we say, how can artificial intelligence help Botswana? Right. The first thing is we can digitalize our indigenous knowledge. And have helpful AI that basically preserves all the historical knowledge, like a museum AI. You speak to it, you ask it questions. You can speak to, the late Kama. You can every person, historical figure, whether it's fruits or plants, you want to understand about them and learn about them.
Because the knowledge is there.
The knowledge is there.
Yeah.
Now easily accessible in multiple languages, right? We can do that. So if I were to pose that to somebody, they'll be like, but that looks difficult. Maybe we should wait for. The question is not about the difficultiness. It's on, how do we access that data? Will the museum give us that information? Will these places be open to giving us that? They'll say, what's the Data Protection Act say? Data Protection Act says personal identifiable information. That is not personal identifiable
about a
information.
plant and some animal and
Exactly. And it's a plant. It has no IP on it. You see, so it's like, that's the kind of things like, why are they gatekeepers of this data? Why don't they allow us to digitalize it for them for free? Why don't they allow us to partner with them? And even if we do go there, they're like, okay, now we need board approval. Oh no, but the government says that the way it's a story. They'll always be jumping around, and then they'll be like, hey, but why did AI take over? Well, we were just watching.
Excellent. Let's move on, guys.
Yeah.
Like you did the story about AI, you've now have a startup, which I think you started last year.
Yeah.
Called Orion X. And
September of last year.
October last year. Yes.
Yeah.
So you are now hot on the press in terms of startup.
Yeah.
So just inform the listeners of the why Orion X, and exactly what does it do in the AI space, so that there can be appreciation there. I know you've got some announcements that you want to make around the product, so that you can, it can boost the startup and the uptake in terms. But why? Why Orion X? And first, why the name?
So the name comes from we love Transformers.
Yeah.
The movie. I don't know if you're aware of Transformers. It's like these large robots and things like that.
Yeah.
And
don't laugh at me, young man.
And I'm sure the viewers know what it is.
Yeah.
And one of the leaders of one of the groups in Transformers is called Optimus Prime.
Okay.
Now, before and being a prime is like an elite thing. Like it's these noble leaders who are warriors, but before Optimus Prime became a prime, his name was Orion Pax.
Okay.
So we take the name, his first name Orion, and then we made Orion X. That's where the name comes from.
Yeah.
So then why Orion X?
Yeah. So Orion X, to be honest, it started off as a frustration that me and Monty were having when we were using the readily available tools like ChatGPT. It wasn't at the time when it was like ChatGPT 3, where it wasn't personalized. It had no context of Botswana. Every time you'd ask it, it would be giving you dollars. It would give, like, it was so, and the wrong information. It would lie to you and then tell you it's telling the truth.
I'm not going to say that.
It would gaslight you, like, no, it is. And like, can you please share references? I can't find references.
This is wrong. And then sometimes it will even say, oh, I'm sorry for that.
Yes, literally. Like it consistently and regularly. I think it even still does, but anyway.
It still hallucinates.
It still hallucinates.
Yeah.
We call that hallucinations. But yeah, because of that, we were like, we need to make a tool that's more like bespoke. So we actually started off by creating knowledge banks for companies. Like we'd collect your data for your company, churn it and train our AI on it, and then you'd have a chatbot. So like entities that are currently using one is BIHL Group. They're using one of their products called Lesedi.
Okay.
They were the fastest and first movers in AI in that regard. They made the decision, paid for it, and engaged. So then other entities like Hari Insurance is also engaged with that regard. But like that's how it started. But now where it is, Marty, we can even double down on this, but we have now moved into having our own LLM. And what we mean by this is we're not leveraging DeepSeek, we're not leveraging Anthropic, we're not ChatGPT, Gemini. No, we're using H100s. So H100 is a GPU. This is a processing unit for the people who are not technical online.
Yeah.
That basically NVIDIA has created to help train artificial intelligence tools. And that's what we're currently using. We've got like a few of them that we're running on. And that's what we're loading data in, training our model to become smarter and more intelligent. And in fact, we even came up with some names with it. And I can let Monty jump into that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, but before you do that, sometimes we assume that because with that hot statistics that, that statistics went on about how even people know about AI in Africa, but they actually don't have much knowledge about it. They hear the hype, but they don't know. So I think if you can just define what LLM is for the LLM, and then, like you said, you just went into the GPU, just in a simple terms that your colleague Kokudu Mate can appreciate.
So LLM is just large language model. It's just a model that uses language to communicate its intentions based on proximity and probability. But in reality, it's an AI that uses words to speak to people. Okay. That's the best way in whatever language. So you can just change the language piece is whatever language. But to be honest and fair, ChatGPT and our product aren't LLMs. They're more large object models because they also produce video. They also produce images, which aren't classified as language.
Yeah.
So that's just a differentiator.
No, that's important because I've heard actually Ray Kuzel talk about it, that we should stop this thing of just using everything as large language. So they've officially named it large objects.
Models.
Is that official?
No, it's not. It's not official. No. But that's what a lot of the things, like in the past, they used to call them chatbots. But me and Monty actually deliberately said conversational AIs. And now it's catching on. So it's really like, it's such a new territory, anyone can say anything. And then that allows you to like decide what you think makes more sense. Because it's not chatbot. Chatbots set parameters, fixed responses. Conversational AI, free text. I could say, hey bro, what's up? I could say, hello, how are you doing? I could ask for anything in the same message, just the same way people engage. And for those who haven't used our these solutions, you should really use them. But
Yeah. No, great stuff. I think when you come in, Monty, because I'm sure there are a lot of, especially youngsters who are have more fluid intelligence. They are going into AI, and it's important to appreciate what differentiates Orion X in terms of the value that you want to add to society. So, yeah, you want to talk more about the LLM?
Yeah, I mean, Tabi defined large language models, and I'd just like to define language models, LLMs. So language models are basically, they're trained on languages, translation. Like Botswana has a language model, Bot LM. It was made by this professor from the US and another individual from SA. And it's meant to translation of Setswana, Setswana English. So it's been trained on a large data set of Setswana, and it's a language model.
Okay.
And then the large language models are trained on like massive amounts of data, and it produces intelligence. So so we, and in across the continent there are a lot of language models. You'll find them in Kenya, in Nigeria, etc.
in South Africa as well.
And SA, there's a lot of language
South Africa,
models.
they've got a language model, isn't it?
Yeah.
Without the large.
I think
Yes, the language model. Exactly.
Something Alepa, something like that.
Yeah.
They have a language model. So, but in terms of large language models in Africa, there's none that is public and been deployed.
As a
large language models.
LLM.
Yes. And also what we find is if in the global sense, less than 1% of the data that's trained for the large language models, your GPTs, the one for Anthropic, etc., and Gemini, less than 1% is African data.
Less than 1%?
Less than 1%.
Okay.
So the number of tokens that are trained for those language models, less than 1% is actual African data. So you'll find that, it's very difficult. If you're in Africa, it's very difficult to...
There's no context.
There's no context.
Yeah.
They don't understand how we do business here. It's very different than the West. My frustrations with how the difference is. It's very different. Our manners, our culture, etc. In the West,
the nuances, the African nuances.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest example I'll just give is, in when I'm in the UK, I call people by their first name. But your friend from university, I call him Pratha. And I know you have a problem with it. But here I would say Re Pratha, Uncle Pratha.
Yeah, that's his damn uncle. He should behave himself.
But in the UK,
I could just say, all the time. And Uncle Pratha allows him to call him Pratha and Laura.
His kids call him Pratha and Laura, So it's just...
I don't know if I can.
It felt weird at first.
You're the man.
But you see that cultural difference, Here I shake with two hands. There I just shake with one.
Got you.
There's a big difference. So those models aren't trained on these nuances. So I feel like, and what you find is in South Korea, Japan, they're all also creating large language models that are sovereign to their
own
nations, So I felt like it's very important that, me and Tabi have a discussion for quite a while, that it's very important that Africa has its own. Africa has its own large language model. So we started developing our own large language model, and we have now, as it says, we're using so NVIDIA's, a very valuable company. They made one of the first to make these AI chips, and we're using one of their most advanced GPUs, the H100s. So we're using that, and what we're doing is we've developed Alabulan, which is the large language model.
Okay.
It's one of the first in Botswana, one of the first in SADC, one of the first in Africa.
So, is it the first or one of the, how do we say
it?
Okay,
it's the first publicly mentioned one.
Yeah, first
is it publicly mentioned one? If someone has created it, it hasn't gone public.
Yeah, they haven't gone public.
Okay. Maybe for strategic reasons.
Possibly.
But it's the first deployed one in Africa.
Okay.
And
Congratulations,
we
guys.
chose.
And all the best with that.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. And I'm waiting for all the noise that we made around it. So that,
Yeah. And the name Alabulan comes from Africa's original name.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was Africa's original name. So we wanted to be deep-rooted in our continent, you know. So we've trained on
brothers of the soil.
Yes. Yeah, there's massive amounts of data for Africa. Yeah. We've long been collecting data. We've long been digitizing things that are not digital. Okay. You know, in Africa, you find that a lot of data either sits in, tribal chiefs' mind and it's not written down, or you find that it sits in a government employee's laptop in a Word document. For example, the health data for joining area, I was looking for it for quite a bit, and we spent 3 months looking for it, and I found it on hard drive, an employee's computer in a Word document. You know, and it's not even high level. It's not, and you know, it's massive amounts of data. You know, even in terms of the medication stockpile usage throughout the year number, it's a lot. You know, conditions, etc. So you find that that's where the data, it's not online. You know, it's digitized but not online. So you either find it's either manual, not digitized, or it's digitized, not online.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've been either digitizing or we've been collecting the ones that are digitized.
Okay.
So, and for Botswana, for example, the laws are not online.
You have to pay for them.
You either have to pay a lot of money,
okay,
and the ones that you actually pay for is not even the up-to-date ones. But we've managed to get the laws and the most up-to-date ones.
Okay.
And the most up-to-date ones aren't even digital. You know, so we have a lot of documents that are scanned, etc.
Our society is not very digitalized, eh?
Yeah, well, it's digitalized, but
to some extent,
it's not online. Yeah.
It's not online.
Yeah, so like you'd find it in a Word document, you'd find them in PDFs,
Excel.
Yeah, it's just very decentralized.
For an ordinary person, does it mean that if government has got all sorts of websites for department of this, department of that, that means that they are not so useful because a lot of the stuff is not online. Is that
most up-to-date stuff is not
that's
online.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I'll give an example. I went to Good Hope to land board, because I wanted to apply for land. I went online and got the application, GovBW. When I arrived there, it's not the most up-to-date thing. They said, no, that's the old one.
The officers themselves.
Yeah, they said no. And then I'm like, can I have the new one? We don't have it. You know, so that, I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
The reality. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, with straight on Botswana laws, it's one of the few, if not the only one that...
No, it is the only one.
Yeah.
When it comes to Botswana law specifically, it was the most up-to-date. We got all the way to 2024, literally like last year. That's how recent. And not only does it have the laws, it has the cases.
Okay.
Like all the cases, the acts.
Massive amounts of case law.
Mass amount of case law. So you could...
All of this is legal.
Yes, it is.
It's legal.
Just checking.
I mean, it's law.
It's law.
No, just checking.
It's in the public domain. So like anything that's been tried, right, as a case tends to go into the public domain. So that's why you're able to capture that information. Yeah. So it's not that we're getting like backdoor favoritism. No. We're just being smart about it.
So one of our products is WeDraft, you know, and WeDraft, our vision is for it to be a full stack AI agent law firm, where it's basically a law firm run by AI. It has highly specialized AI agents for whether it's conveyancy, you know, you wanted a sales agreement and you paid like 5,000 pula for it, no more. You just pay 500 pula and the AI will make the best sales agreement document for you.
Is the product WeDraft already available for people to be able to use it?
So we have a wait list.
It's still being cooked. It's being cooked.
There's a wait list for people to like jump on. So just WeDraft.co. That's the website, like WeDraft.co.
But it's not ready yet. I mean, if someone wants to...
It's in beta.
Instead of having to... Yeah?
It's in beta, so you get invited to use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not launched fully yet.
Okay. So guys, this sounds very big for an African startup to come up with one of the first LLM models. That's a fact.
Yeah.
How else can I challenge you whether this is the reality and is truthful and the evidence that this is indeed a product that's a first? How else can you?
You can do your own research. Go on Google.
Go online and type in African LLMs.
You won't find any.
You won't find any.
You can even use the
ChatGPT.
deep search, deep research as well.
You won't find any.
You won't find anything.
For
anything that's public.
Yeah. For ChatGPT, you can use the deep research function or Perplexity or whatever and ask for African LLMs. You won't find.
You won't find them.
Yeah.
None.
Well, now you'll probably find Orion.
Now you'll find Orion. Yeah.
Like you probably find
So
Orion.
what does it mean? I'm just translating to reality, because does it mean that you are now in a journey to collect African data?
Yes.
So that the Orion X can truly become useful to the whole ecosystems. Ecosystem means from health to defense to education to whatever. Is that a fair way of putting it? Is that the ultimate thing?
I mean, we are collecting a lot of data, and we also gonna have these clusters or data centers. We plan to have in Kenya, Nigeria, and Botswana to power our large language models as we scale, and Africa can truly have its own digital sovereignty. That's the goal. And let people build using our AI, which is called Uhuru, by the way.
Okay.
Which means freedom. So that's our AI, and it's live. It's online. People can sign up for it and start using it.
For Uhuru, for the language model.
Yeah, for the language model.
Yeah. And this is Alabulan 1. So this is the first version of it.
Okay.
And it's only going to get more powerful.
Okay.
So, we've already started working on Alabulan 2.
Okay.
And which is very exciting. So, and what's nice is you can use it per region. So you can just go, when you're chatting with it and you want to do something that's specific to Zambia, you just press the drop-down menu, press Zambia, and it'll say, okay, I'm not ready to Zambia specific.
Okay.
Or you can say SADC, or if you want the Africa, you say Africa, or if you want the globe, you can say the globe. So you can region specific it, and obviously a lot of African languages you can use it in. And now we're about to release API access to it for people to, instead of powering your applications with GPT or Claude or DeepSeek or whatever, you can now power it with Alabulan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like an additional aspect, because I know some of the listeners may be a little bit confused to say, oh yeah, but on ChatGPT, I can just say in the context of Botswana or in the context of Zambia. The difference is when you select Zambia specifically, we would even have like very, very nuanced data, like very specific. The more contained your LLM is, the more accurate it is. There's less hallucinations. It's more accurate, more factual, more precise. So it won't generalize. It won't deviate from the truth too much, especially when you focus it onto like a specific package. So if you say Zambia, it's going to be specific to Zambia as opposed to doing the Africa Zambia. So if you select Africa, yes, it can answer the questions, but the probability, even with ChatGPT, of hallucinations is just higher. So we're just reducing that probability to make it a very, very accurate, very, very high value product when you specialize to the specific country. And that's why...
Or region, yeah.
Yeah, or region. And that's why we've done that. We've taken that approach of selecting per country as well as the content of Africa.
Yeah.
Okay. Why registration in the UK?
Before that,
okay,
the hallucinations is key because when you say a Botswana, if the GPT-4 has been trained, if 1% of it, less than 1% has been trained on African data, I mean, it's obviously going to hallucinate when you say it, because hallucination means that it's giving you wrong information, and it makes it sound right. You believe it, but you don't. That you won't question it. It won't admit that I don't know. It won't admit that, but it will just tell you the most right-sounding information.
I'm struggling to understand why would a $1 billion company like Microsoft's OpenAI, ChatGPT, not have the capability to have African data, especially the whole hulabaloo or Africa is the next frontier in terms of development. So you'll think they'll be quick to say, let's be there first. Why is that so? Why would they not have jumped onto the fresh continent, for lack of a better word?
So, like, realistically, I think it's a business decision as well as just infrastructure and technology and exposure.
And difficulty.
And difficulty, of course. So let's just say...
It's very complex to try and get this data.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Well, with their budgets, I don't think that would be the biggest hindrance.
Yeah.
So it's more to say, now that we have Africa's data, who's going to pay for it? You see, right? Their bills are $20 per month. Africa's general income is not above $20 as spare change. You can't just pay for 400 pula, 350 pula per month on an AI that just answers questions. You see,
and it's 4% of people. The average salary in Botswana, that's 4% of their salary.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
And Botswana is considered a middle to high income in terms of Africa's context. So now imagine countries where the hourly rate is like $1 or $2. Like you're not going to be.
So the divide just carries on.
So now you have this data, great, sure. But who in Africa is going to be paying monthly to subscribe, to use and benefit from that? They just say, it's a fringe benefit. The 80-20 rule. If we put 20% of our effort in America, we'll get 80% value because people will subscribe and we'll get our return instantly. If you do that in Africa, you're going to put 80% of your effort and only get a 20% return. So now that means they have to change their whole model. So does Africa now need to have a different costing? What's the structure going to look like? Does everyone have a smartphone? Do they have internet access? Internet is expensive. There's just so many considerations they won't even be able to consume our product. Hence, our product also works offline. What we mean by that, you can send SMSs to it. You can text it and speak to an AI, quality as ChatGPT, and engage.
Offline.
Like meaning just airtime.
I got you,
Yeah. So yes, a Serilami can use it. So that's the differences. Those are the nuances. Yeah, you can even call it. You can even go on a call with it and be like, hey, hello, and it would speak to you on the phone and then help you. So we've created multiple ways in which we have Africa in mind in the context of helping and supporting AI adoption. So if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can still engage on WhatsApp. You can engage on Instagram. You can engage. It's multi-platformed. Okay. It's not just www.chatgpt. And in Africa, specifically in Botswana, we have something called social bundles. Social bundles specifically give us free access to your WhatsApps, Facebooks, etc. And because of that, we know that the best place to put our AI would be those platforms as well. So it also sits there and it can answer questions. It can also help. And like we said, multilingual, multi-regional, and quite useful in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah.
And our pricing is
so affordable.
Yeah, it's Africa friendly.
Yeah.
But have you guys done the feasibility? Because now first of all, Africa AI readiness is the worst in the world. Botswana, Oxford AI readiness assessment. Botswana scored 120, out of, other global countries. You're talking maybe 160 or so. So we're on the wrong side. The highest countries is where you went to school. Mauritius is number one.
Oh, wow.
It's number one at 52. And then you got 52%. They scored 52% out of 100. And then followed by South Africa and Rwanda. They are the leaders in Africa in terms of readiness. Readiness, we're talking data centers, infrastructure, everything, people knowledge about AI and so forth. So there's a whole comprehensive assessment that gets done. So I'm feeling for you in terms of the heavy lifting. And you said these guys struggle because it does not make financial sense. Now you are even go at low cost. So I'm busy looking at the business model and see where the business model will pay out to say, is there something that you're looking at in terms of how this business model will in the end? I know you're looking at fundraising and those type of things to see how, but there's a very, what I'm listening to, there's a very strong social entrepreneurship aspect of it, looking at education and what it can do in terms of museums and knowledge and using of African languages. So there's a lot of that in there. But who's going to put that money on that?
You mean the customer?
The customer. That's what you're going to monetize, isn't it?
Yeah, our pricing is very Africa friendly.
Very.
We have the Uhuru free, where you get 25 messages a day to use it. And then we have...
Which is more than ChatGPT, by the way, just to make sure that that's very clear.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of charge?
Yeah, in terms of the number of messages that you get.
Number of messages you get.
Oh, number of messages is more than ChatGPT. I got you.
On the free tier.
Okay, right. Yeah.
And then Uhuru Plus, which is $7.
Just under 100 pula.
Yeah. And then we have Uhuru Pro, which is the most elite model, which is $14. And that's our maximum. Our maximum is cheaper than
their base.
The cheapest, their most affordable pricing in the West. And it's Africa context. It's been trained on African data. And you're not compromising on intelligence. So you're getting the same level of intelligence with African trained data for more affordable cost.
Yeah.
So,
because like you see, the thing is that they are driving for profit or driving for impact. Even though we will make profit in this, there's no reason to charge that much. There's no reason to charge $200 a month. There really is no reason. You can provide the same quality data, same impact, same value, same LLM with the same quality with way, way less than that. So that's why we're like, let's help our people. Like we need to get into the race. And because we work on SMS, that on its own is a unique selling point. Meaning, as we scale across the world, US, South America, Mexico's, the Cubas, they will be using that. Places in Taiwan, places in Japan, like places that use cell phones, they can still use the LLM if they don't have Wi-Fi, if there's no connectivity. When they're traveling in the plane, like there's just so many things that we've really considered. Why, as scale goes in, more people will just use it. So yes, Uhuru currently, Orion X works currently is African-based, but it's globally looking.
It's globally accessible.
We're definitely going to be looking at it globally. Yeah.
Okay. But the main thing as well is that a lot of people who have interest in Africa want to use an African, am I right?
Yeah.
Want to use an African LLM. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, when you say Microsoft and those, they're looking at Africa. So where are they going to get the data from? Where are they going to get the information? Or why then they just plug into Uhuru? That's
what I mean.
They just take the API and connect to
and they
Uhuru,
can just
get powered by Alabulan, and then they use it.
Okay.
No,
great stuff, and all the best, guys. Now, I've talked about the challenges of a startup in our ecosystems, which has been quite a cry in terms of being able to facilitate startups to scaling to maybe even unicorns at some stage. But when one looks at other countries, they are making a really big deal. We're now trying to get into the policy front. That being a big deal. I mean, in terms of, for instance, we talked about countries that got ministers of AI. The countries that have, Singapore, by the way, in those statistics and those rankings is number 2. Singapore, as an example, has made AI training free for all over 40-year-olds. I know in Dubai and also in Saudi Arabia, public service, they're AIing their public service.
They've already started making laws with AI.
Yeah, exactly. They've made law. So I'm talking about the lethargy of our systems. How is that? Just some comment around how is that going to not assist you, or how would you advise our policymakers?
Tread carefully.
Because you see things, we also don't want to be blackballed.
No. But yeah, you say
we have to speak the truth, though.
Speak the truth, speak the truth, because the president, the president Dumaboko has. I went to the private sector engagement forum. He says, let's debate issues.
Yeah.
Tell us as it is. So, with the permission of the president, go for it.
And then the solutions, of course.
Yeah.
So like I see the biggest thing that's currently happening, right, with I would say the slow pace in adoption. Botswana, it speaks to our culture. We're actually very docile people. Like we're very calm, we're quiet, we're to ourselves. We don't even like to travel that much, honestly. Like some people would have even been in their village or in their city their whole lives, like from cradle to grave. We don't go to SA. Yes, some of us do, but that's as far as we go. We don't want to travel so much. And that's culture or that behavior speaks to change. We don't like change. So things like artificial intelligence, things like internet, things like digitalization.
Yeah, just general digitalization.
General digitalization. We're already like, you know what? That's a bit too much for me right now. Like that's a lot of information in one moment. Relax. I can send my emails. Like we still fax to this day. There's still faxes.
There's still faxes.
Yeah.
There's still fax
Government tenders are sent via fax.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like one time I saw it. Remember those, I don't know if you was during your time, where you put that blue thing for duplicate sheets.
No, that was definitely before me.
No, but I've seen some offices still have it.
Sure.
Yeah, but the faxing, it still exists. And I was like, faxing a tender? Like, what? You know, like those things blow my mind. Like, no. You need a fax machine to even submit sometimes. So it's very, very like prehistoric in that regard. And the main thing is only because people are scared to change. They're scared to learn the simplicities of things. And I think how we position it, it's our fault. How we're presenting, we're either not presenting in a way that is easy to understand, or either not presenting in a way that it's tangible, relatable, adaptable. Because the truth is, cell phones came and our parents used Facebook, adopted it. Now they're dominating Facebook. Like there are more adults over 30 on Facebook than they are.
Facebook.
Just Facebook. And even Reels and stuff. So it's really just on how did we teach them? How did we show them? It all starts with hey, can you please help me with this? We tend to just do it for them and not show them how to do it.
Correct.
Now the knowledge still stays with us. Then they no longer do it. They're not going to do it if they don't learn.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we as youth also need to be willing to teach. To be like, this is how it works. This is what it does. Send a message like this. Click here. Very simple.
So you got a lot of teaching to do.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But you get this the AI uptake too.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a lot of teaching to do. But when it comes to policymakers, and I think that's the question, like, how do we reduce that lethargy, right? That's the word.
The red
right?
tape. And
the red tape and reduce that. It's I know they say public-private partnerships, but it should be public-private youth partnerships. So where you engage them, whether you engage with BNYC, the entities that are delivered and deliberately built for youth, and you partner with them in terms of policy making. Because me and Monty, like WeDraft can create laws for Botswana. The turnaround time and review time could be cut in a second. You want to make a decision on a policy around artificial intelligence, everybody pours in their guidelines, everybody pours in their concepts and their ideas. It will process that information and then share a draft. That can now be reviewed, debated. We can approve it, goes to the next phase. Like, that's what Dubai is doing. That's what Saudi Arabia is doing. It's very easy to do this. Like, it's not something that's a pie in the sky. Yeah. Very, very quick, like 2 days.
But then for us, it's going to take a year.
Exactly.
Or sometimes someone is going to come from overseas with a solution.
And
then
sell
you
it at $1 billion.
Yeah. And then they will take it on after making you merry-go-round.
So it's that ability to believe. One, also the belief in Botswana youth. The truth is, we don't believe in ourselves. They don't believe in us either. If we were to sell, here's WeDraft, you can do this laws for Botswana, they'd be like, let me just call these guys overseas to come over and do it. No, really. And
we go for the benchmark. And we'll find somebody out there.
And then you find that they're using our API. That same benchmark company is now using our product in the background.
That's true.
So it's like you are going outside. We're so used to exporting raw material, like our diamonds, raw material, and then getting the finished product.
We pay more.
It's like, why do we should remove that culture and go straight for being the refined product. So
got you.
Yeah.
Anything, Monty, on the policy advisory? Yeah, especially you having experienced the UK startup and innovation system there.
Yeah, I mean, I always give the example of, I offered government for grade. I offered government for free. Can I have 5 of your worst performing schools? In terms of grades, can I have it for a year and I implement grade ed there, and then we see the results, for free of charge.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a proof of concept. Yeah, a POC,
and it's 5 of yours performing, so it can't get worse. I mean, Good Hope Senior Secondary pass rate increased. When I went there last time, they said, "Oh, Monty, our pass rate increased." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. What is it now? 11.4%. That's like 89% failure rate, and it's better. So it can't get worse. So, but I submitted they asked for a proposal. I everything they did, I said I did everything they asked for, and they said no. All the way up to the minister, PS, everything.
And why did they say no?
And they said no, and they're just not interested. I don't believe that they actually want to do anything. That's my belief. I just believe that they're there to just pray in public, virtue signaling. So, and in terms of, and I've, again, I'll give another example. I applied for funding here in Botswana at one of the organizations that give out
funding for
funds
innovation.
for
startups.
innovation.
Yeah, innovation funding. That's a good way
for innovation funding. I applied for one of the
in
Botswana here. So I think, So their response, I got rejected, and their response was, "It's not innovative enough. It can't scale, and it's not impactful." Now, I also run this in the UK, and I've partnered with one of the major universities in the UK as well for this, and for one of the competitions, Times Higher Education, which is the largest body for higher education in the world, had a competition for digital universities in the UK, and they wanted you to reinvent what the universities will look like in the future, especially in the era of AI, and submitted grade, and we were the final 10.
Final 10?
Final 10. In the world.
Really?
Final 10.
And locally, with the local institutions,
rejected as not being innovative.
Not being innovative. And this is a more advanced economy, more innovation, etc., more competitive.
More exposure.
Exactly.
Like more people who could be potentially doing the same thing as us.
Yeah, but here it was rejected. So I think that speaks for itself. We're not actually interested in changing at all. And that same organization on LinkedIn announced that they're funding a company that is doing ISP, which is a really saturated market, and a company that does cloud hosting services, which a lot of companies do. So, you see the issue here.
So it's like, how does that scale? How does an ISP scale when Starlink comes in? It's those.
Maybe it's a different version of Starlink. Next level. All right, I think I've appreciated the problem statement.
That's the problem.
Now I want you guys to get into solutions. So how do we change this ecosystem such that Orion X and many others, I'm sure there are a lot of young people with very brilliant ideas. One thing I am very sure of is that there are stars out there, young people.
There's no shortage of ideas.
There's no shortages, yeah.
So I think what we did is, me and Tabi have debated whether staying here, going out there, etc. We get frustrated here, so let's just go to Silicon Valley, let's just go to the UK. But, that's the loud voice in us is saying, just go. Just go there, it'll be much nicer. You get
much
to your
easier.
startup.
We come back.
The ecosystem is mature.
Exactly.
We can come back as if we're a UK company.
Exactly. But then we have that inner voice, the one that whispers to us that's saying, no.
Just wait.
Stay and make impact. This is your country, your continent. Make impact. And that's the more meaningful voice. So, we have no choice but to do this. There's a reason we're doing it here. It's because we want to inspire. We want to develop the country. We need the post-diamond era of Botswana. Diamonds is 33% of our GDP. So basically, we need something that can replace 33% of our GDP, and that's technology. Nothing else can do that. Only technology, because technology can grow that fast to
very profitable as well.
And cover that. Literally nothing else, by the way, in case people are wondering. So we decided it has to be done.
Yeah.
It will there are barriers, there are things, but in the end, it just has to be done. It's something that we don't even have a choice. It's bigger than us. It's these are people's lives. We always think about, the example of, there's this, single mother with 3 children struggling to pay bills, insurance, school fees, and she's being affected by the economy, and there's lots of people like that. So it has to be done education-wise. The education here has to change. It has to be done. And the way we do business has to change. So it's just something that, whether policymakers join us and have discussions with us or not, we will still do it. We're not going to be stopped by the red tapes and policymakers. So
you're steaming ahead.
We're just doing it.
And another thing that Motheo touched on, which is extremely important, is that 30% of our GDP is tied to diamonds. And the economy is looking for an alternative. China has equity in technology companies that have grown their GDP exponentially. Private companies can be now partnered, just like Botswana. Botswana is a government-private entity partnership. They could just do that with an AI
They
company.
could partner with technology companies,
100%.
accelerate
And then
technologies.
that would easily replace that deficit, that 30%, because it's no longer a Botswana product. Diamonds, yes, we're selling to the world, but with technology, it spreads. It's deep-rooted. It's now supported. Now everybody knows already, no one has bad blood against Botswana. Like when you think of Botswana globally, everyone's like, oh, that's a peaceful country.
Good
It's
democracy.
good democracy. It's stable. We have so much good equity on that. We could just use that to push like, oh no, this is an AI from Botswana. No one is going to think the data is going to be stolen. No one's going to think we're going to spy on them. They will be so opening and welcome, open hands. So like that's the solution. Partnering
So
with
government can partner just like what China does. And you're right,
Yeah.
China does a lot of equity funding.
Yeah.
We had a presentation from Huawei a couple of months ago, and they talked about how government actually puts money on new ideas.
They deploy a lot
And a
of
big time.
Yes,
And
big
that's
money.
how
Yeah,
it's a technology-led country.
100%.
So we could do more of that
Intentionally,
here.
instead of providing funding, like institutions that give
equity,
you funding,
equity, you are
here's
with
the
them.
government, here, go in.
When
I
you
know
have a
there's lot
sense of
weird
ownership,
stuff.
it makes a huge
Yeah,
difference.
and it walks the journey with you.
100%.
Yeah.
Because you see that doors will open much quicker. As
When government is also in.
It's because like, they'll be like,
because
no,
things are at stake.
it will scale now. Now the product can scale, produce more value. So like
fantastic
really,
idea.
Yeah,
so-
this is a great solution that Tavi mentioned. And I'll give an example. In the US, billions and billions of dollars have been deployed for AI. Over 50 billion, Microsoft announcing billions of dollars are going to be invested. So they've deployed billions of dollars. Europe just announced, the EU announced that
company
they're
that is known for
500
rejecting
billion.
everything.
Huh? What?
The company that's known for red taping everything.
Yeah,
Europe has more red
best
tapes
at
than Botswana.
regulating.
Yeah.
It's so red
they
taped.
just regulate things out. It's absolutely nonsense. But they've announced 500 billion euros for investment in AI,
Not as
especially
an entity,
infrastructure.
the government itself.
Money from government.
Yeah,
That's money from the EU.
What is
And then
Botswana putting on AI? You coming
I'm
there?
coming
Okay.
China already billions of dollars invested in AI and billions of dollars going to go into AI again, like they're deploying. Africa, as a continent, has invested $300 million in AI.
We're 2 billion people.
$300 million.
That's not enough for $1 per person.
And apparently we get only 0.5% of global funding in AI. Globally.
Yeah.
0.5%.
But you see,
out of this huge population.
So you see the issue here
it
that
doesn't,
the policymakers need to change. They need to deploy funds to...
Where is our money going?
ROI,
Anyway, that's maybe...
the money is going to wastage. We need to... The ROI in technology is great. I mean, it's undisputed, etc. It's the reason why America is huge. It's the reason why the EU is big. So that's the
It's
solution.
a playbook that's tried and true, right? And just to quickly just touch on that, where the money is going, right? Right now, the money is going into blocking holes. We're in a bucket with holes in it, and we're just trying to like close these holes, and new holes are appearing. That's what the money is being used for.
Yeah, like sellotaping.
So my advice is, if you were to just invest in a completely new bucket with AI, it has no holes. Like the revenue can then come back and pour and patch up all these things. There's so many amazing initiatives that this current government has.
Let me give you an example of the ways that you're talking about. As you know, leads into project management. So we've been trying to assist government for many years in projects, and we haven't received the best of receptions. So one of the things that I've cried about is basically what we say, over-spec'd projects, basically to suck as much money from government as possible. And the classical example I usually give is like, if you go to Palape, you'll find a police station. Huge police station with a tennis court and a basketball court. Even the one that people use the example a lot by Dibeti. It's got a tennis court, which has got grass this high.
Yeah, trees.
So last year, then I hear there's a new police station in Shakawe. And in this police station, I heard that it's also got a basketball court and tennis court. I went
Where's
bonkers. So I went bonkers. So I was calling the director, and he was like, guys, please stop wasting Botswana money. Which constable police guy plays tennis, let alone basketball? Those guys just make some five-a-side soccer pitches and all that. They play soccer, and that's what they do. Is because the engineers are just milking government. And some government official is approving such designs. And that's what project management does. It controls even they call value engineering, how you scope a project and make sure you cut costs. Now I went to Shakawe 2 weeks ago, and I go there. I actually took pictures of where we took a tent to the police station, and indeed, it's got a basketball court, and they will still do it. That's what you said. I mean, this is just wasted. This is the money that the billions that you collect, and they could go into this type of investment.
Yeah, like honestly, like I think if we just repurpose our investment structure, right? Like it doesn't take much. A billion pula investment, the return is 700 to 10,000 X. Like literally.
On emerging technologies and AI.
Literally. So once you've done that, let's say, and it's not like a mine where you have to sweat the asset. Property, real estate, infrastructure, manufacturing, those are very expensive things. You have to sweat the asset.
The capex
very
is
high capex. And just maintenance and management. Like huge investment. After 30 years, you'll get your money back. With tech, literally, if you put $1 billion in today, next year or even next month, you could get your money back, literally. So it's like, the horizons are shorter. The risks, yes, may be high in that regard. But now if you're the government, you can just open doors. You have such goodwill. Like, oh no, we have this. This is a tool that we're using. What do you guys think? So really.
No, great stuff, guys.
Yeah.
We coming to the end of it. And I just wanted to come back to a bit more personal about
your question for why the UK.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important.
Okay.
Why we opened up in UK.
Why you opened up the UK? Yeah.
We have one in Botswana and in the UK.
In the UK.
Yeah, you can take
All right. So, well, there's so many benefits. In the UK, there are policies specifically around R&D. So we can get tax rebates just on research on AI. So that regard, once we're making any revenue, any profits that we make, we don't need to pay as much tax as we would, let's say, in Botswana, because we have rebates against the R&D budget.
I got you.
So how you structure your entity there allows us to then even accept international payments. So we don't have a payment railway or gate here in Botswana. We leverage like DPOs, pay gates, and
elsewhere.
Yeah. And not then in Africa, there's like a Flutterwave and etc. So there's something called Stripe. Stripe basically allows you to do any kind of online payment. And because our product is a software as a service, meaning there's a subscription based, it requires a Stripe account. And unfortunately, Stripe doesn't work in Botswana. So it's another thing that maybe the politicians and the policymakers should
also consider.
Leverage, or even Flutterwave, an African-owned one. But like, we're using that. Low costs, low scale. People can now go to our platform, make a payment but it's going to our UK account because we can't link it to our Botswana account.
I got you.
So now it's bleeding revenue, but it still gets sent back here. But it's just like a process. Like, look at all that work.
But you need to go where incentives are for 100%. You to be able to,
Like what R&D budgets do we have here? We've got Cesar zones for manufacturing and production. Product-based businesses, not service-based businesses. If there was a Cesar zone for software, that would be amazing. Tax rebates.
Because it's got to be unique specifically for
100%.
For software and...
Yeah. So like the way they give you tax breaks, like if it's a 6-month tax holiday, where you're like, you just keep experimenting.
And you could do that and invite all the AI...
Literally.
Entrepreneurs across Africa and say,
then they come and set up.
This is the cluster. This is where you set up and collaborate and get the billion-dollar companies going.
Yeah. Like a lot of government buildings are not even utilized fully, meaning they're vacant. A lot of them.
The one here by Kale, government building.
It's vacant.
It's, run down.
You see, so even like the Bob's building, the way I was just from, it's empty. Like people could use those spaces. You could Cesar zone buildings, BDIH, Cesar, whatever spaces, tax breaks. If your startup is in that place and using these data centers, tax break. Just like that. It incentivizes people to use it. Now people all over the world will be coming. Money will be pouring into the country like no one's business.
Now people go to Cape Town.
Exactly.
Because they're very software-based in Cape Town.
So it's just intention. And that's a decision overnight. You don't need to now invest or build anything. You already have it. Just write it on a piece of paper and say, this is what's going to happen. And it happens. So.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, right now we're raising funds from
$1
investors.
million.
Yeah. Our pre-seed round is $1 million. That's
pre-seed,
That's how much we're raising. And that we're raising from the UK side, because in Botswana, too much red tape. I'll just give and
to be fair, there's a Botswana that wants to invest a portion of that 1 million.
Yeah,
locally.
Yeah.
So that's so it is open to like people like.
Is that an individual high net worth type.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a high net worth individual.
Okay.
So like anyone else could also come in before we fully raise our 1 million. We are opening that portion out to people and bots. But if no one engages, we're not going to wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go, guys. Those who want to experiment and go into AI, the guys are calling.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have African AI data centers all over the country. But but the reason also to tap for why UK, it's startup ready. I mean, the government in the UK is trying to make it easy for startups to grow and exist. You don't hear that conversation here in Botswana or in Africa. And another one is, I'll give an example. I've never been to a bank branch in the UK. I've never stepped for personal banking and business banking. I've been in the UK for 5 years now. Never. Botswana, I am required to go to the bank branch, and to open an account. That's time consumed. That can be used for
R&D.
For
R&D
work.
time.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
It's so amazing that he was here when you opened the bank branch and the company for Orion.
For Orion X. We did it all here.
We did it all
They didn't say, please, let's come and see you at Oxford Street or something in London.
I was here. But here, to open a business bank account, personal bank account, requires me to go in person. So these things, they slow down startups, especially when you have momentum. So that side, you can maintain your momentum.
So guys, just on a final note, especially on the language model side. So if we don't Africanize these LLMs, what is the disadvantage from a bigger picture? What are we actually losing as a continent from not doing that? What's the big deal?
We're losing quite a bit. I mean, Tabi gave an example earlier that our knowledge, our cultural knowledge, our cultural data, traditions, where this is a good way to preserve them by training the large language models, because they'll be there for quite a long time. Instead of it dying with the tribal chief or the elderly individual, you can actually go there. We interview people to get data on traditions and stuff. Now we take it and we train Al-Kabinan, so that now it's preserved, and as well as our culture and traditions are also preserved, because if the AI knows it, then it's responding in accordance with our culture and traditions. The youth can execute in that manner.
Okay.
Whereas if we're using just the Western ones, where less than 1% of their data is African data, now you adopt that Western way of living.
We lose our culture.
Exactly. And I'll give an example. In the West, they view robots as, Terminator type way, where, they're here to destroy us and kill us, and they're the end of us. In Japan, in the East, they view robots as helpers.
And servants.
Exactly.
That's why a lot of them is receptionists now in Japan.
Exactly. They know they're helpers.
I saw one where there was a click where they were in China. One was delivering food at a room. It was going up there. Yeah.
So they view it as helper, more positive.
Before AI, by the way.
Yeah, this was before. And in the West, they view it as a negative sense. So how does Africa view it? How do we want to view it?
Now, if you use their models.
If we use their models, we're going to view it as a negative type thing. But we can create our own and view it as this is, well-mannered, it has boto, for example. So it's good.
Reduce the fear.
And also in terms of the way business is done, or things are done, the Western models or the Eastern models don't know how it's done. So when you're asking it for advice or how to do things, it doesn't know. If you're putting together a tender, the way the tender is structured is very important. The way what government is looking for specifically, that mindset, you cater for it. They don't know how it's done. The landscape, land. Let's give the example of, you can ask Uhuru, if I want to plant maize in the Sandveld area, is it feasible? And it will respond. You don't have to say it's in Botswana, no. You don't have
Because
to
it
say
already
anything.
knows sand
It knows,
felt.
it already knows
And
sand.
chances
It's
that
been
you know
trained.
the sand,
It knows
the soil
quality.
type.
But if you ask the Western models, they'll say yes, and they'll give you a reason why. But
Lying.
it does exactly. It's hallucinating.
Yeah.
You know, it actually doesn't know.
Because
And
it's
when you
struggling to get the right data.
Because it doesn't know the data. It hasn't been trained on the data. You see, that's why it's important that we have our own large language models that actually are trained on African data.
Okay.
And that's what,
Now
that's
got
what
you.
it is.
Got
I don't
you.
know if you want to add.
Yeah.
No, just to say that, like, echoing his point, it's like the culture piece. Like, I don't know. I personally don't know the full process of the Lobola
process.
the whole Lobola process. I'd have to rely on my uncles, and one day, God forbid, they passed in an accident. Who's going to be?
You're the uncle.
Yeah, I'll
the
be the uncle,
delegation.
right? So now it's like those little soft things that we take for granted. You know, like getting married. You know, that process. Like, what does that look like? And if you're Kalanga, what does that look like? If you're a Herero, what does that look like? You know, all those different cultures, they all have their own ways of doing things, and being able to capture that. Culture is the key determining factor of people that have rooted behaviors. So don't know that whole calling somebody Boma, Bore, you know, even greetings. So for example, in Bemba, to say hello, that direct translation means I hope my greeting heals you, and then you respond, I receive that healing. That is what it means in direct translation. So it's like we would lose all that power. The power of the tongue, the power of being able to speak life into things with our native language.
Absolutely.
So we lose more than just the surface
almost
level.
like we lose our soul. We lose who we are.
100%.
Yeah.
And the depth in which our languages go. You know how they say, no, it doesn't sound as funny in English. You know, like those
those
kind of
nuances.
concept, those nuances. So it's like you lose all of that.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's Tswana. It's just, this is another language. You have THL or TL. You know, that's
Tapa or Tapa.
Exactly. You know, that's...
And knowing the differences and why.
The difference and why.
Because even in Setswana, there are different dialects, there are different ways of saying words.
So it's like just knowing important. That and like speaking to the AI and like learning. Like you could...
But when you say Mokata, you know the type of language they use compared to Bangladesh. Like that type of thing. This is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. That's quite detailed.
It's very
in the detail.
very...
The details matter.
Okay.
Like that's what makes it different.
Yeah.
It's not like speaking to this very old, very wise African person. Like, and they answer questions. You can speak to them verbally, like hear their voice, female, male, or whatever, and engage with them. Have these dialogues. You know, I'm about to get married. What do I need to do? You know,
it'll explain everything
in detail. Like, oh, what culture are you from? You know, like that kind of, oh man.
So you can even have, talking about the, where you have somebody from an AI perspective, you are sitting at the Kotla and there's a Lobola. Actually, he's sitting there, he's busy telling you what to say.
Yeah. It could negotiate for you.
And you say, you actually I'm a Mokata. So the guy is even putting on a Kata.
100%.
That can happen.
Yeah. The use cases are limited by the people's ideations. And like we said, if AI is looked at in a positive way and less fearful, that's the difference. We should not be scared of it. And how we absorb it, how we engage with it, that's going to make the difference. That's going to make the big change. And also, just to make it a last request, the government is allowed to invest in Orion X. Just make that clear. If they want to, they can also engage. We're willing to work with them, to scale, to like diversify the economy. Like genuinely, we're willing to work with them. Yeah.
I mean,
Orion X has a lot of projects going on. You know, we have Alabulan, you know,
Uhuru.
We draft one. You know, it's going to be the first AI law firm in the continent as well. It's one of the first. And Grey Ed, you know, opening up a physical location. What we're going to do is it's going to be Grey Ed School, 2 hours of academic learning, and then 4 hours, the rest of the 4 hours is life skills, you know, learning how to invest, learning how to cook, learning how to budget, you know, learning how to, you know, do a startup, you know, content creation, you know, we live in that era. Learning how to do all these things. And then and the reason it's 2 hours of academic learning is because it's hyper-personalized to the student.
Individual.
So they can take in more in less time. Unlike the other schools where they do 7 hours of learning, academic learning, which is a lot of time, and unpersonal, not personal.
Busy learning about the Tsar of Russia,
So-
even if you don't want to.
You see, now that we're using AI to teach the people, it'll be contextual to Botswana.
Yeah.
Like you're now able to know, like, oh, okay, that's where this is, why this is called that. Like all those things that my uncle told me, I was like, this is the first time I'm hearing this. So that
Yeah.
kind of knowledge gets fed and embedded into the AI.
Excellent.
So we're tackling law, we're tackling education. Now, next up is healthcare. And we're just going to keep going, agriculture.
Okay.
So,
So
we
like
have AI agents and
Yeah.
Uhuru that specialize in these industries.
Okay.
So Orion X is a very, very big, it has a very large scope in terms of what we're going to do. And we're obviously getting a lot of people, youth are being employed. So
Yeah.
yeah, we have a
creation
team.
is
It's not
the-
just me and Monty. We
Yeah,
have a team.
we have a team.
We have a team, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Excellent.
So,
yeah.
All right, guys, it looks like it's a fantastic idea, and all the best with the venture. And Botswana needs lots of this. Imagine if we have 100 of these type of ideas.
Oh, man.
I mean, this country will just take off. So
Yeah.
all the best and well done. Now we're coming to an end. There are a lot of, we just did analytics. A lot of the people that actually watch the podcast, a lot of youngsters, in their 30s and younger. And just like for you to share just your messages to them as your comrades in age. Just the last message to them. And also share what, usually I ask, I don't know if you guys are good readers, just share an inspiration from a book or a philosopher or somebody that really, if the listeners can either watch or listen, it will offer some good inspirations. These have been very, very effective. People have actually appreciated the books that have been recommended from a lot of our guests. So if you can just share something that can be a takeaway for our audiences, that would be awesome.
All right, great. Well, for me, and I know possibly a lot of other people, my type of learning is more on auditory. I'm an auditory learner. So I tend to learn through listening and then obviously watching things.
Personalized.
Personalized learning, yeah. So like there's a philosopher that I do also listen to sometimes. His name is Alan Watts.
Alan Watts.
Yeah, Alan Watts,
Okay.
yeah. He has a very interesting ways of like perceiving life and presenting information. So you can obviously find him either on YouTube. He's dead. It's an old
philosopher.
Yeah. Yeah. So Alan Watts is someone that I could recommend to people who like to have deep thoughts or deep reflection on certain things. And
Alan Watts.
Alan Watts, yeah. ALAN.
Cool.
Yeah. Watts.
Okay.
And then a quote maybe or like a phrase or something that you should keep on top of mind because we're about to get into a period of strife. That's the truth. We're going to get into a period of strife. So mental health is going to be at the top of mind. Just remember, it's raining. It's not raining on you. So don't take life as it happening to you. Take life as it's just happening. So consider that when you're feeling depressed. Consider that when you're feeling down, to say that you can extract yourself from life being against you. It's just being life. And accepting that as a way to go forward on your day-to-day. And that would be for like my listeners on the thing. And don't give up on your dreams.
Awesome.
AI can help you. It's
beautiful. We had to get back to AI, didn't we?
Like no, I had to make sure that people know like AI can help
wonderful
AI
wisdom, Mthabi. Really appreciate it. Monty, on your side?
Yeah, I think on my side, it's, I'm dyslexic, so I hate reading.
Aren't both of you guys dyslexic?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, how the hell does work get done, both of you?
In fact, what we call the high-performing ones.
High-performing dyslexic.
They're all high-performing. Bill Gates is dyslexic.
Yeah, so I try to understand.
Yeah,
a lot of entrepreneurs are dyslexic.
So I think that if you're not dyslexic, you're not going to be famous.
Even the Virgin guy is dyslexic.
Yeah, Virgin.
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson, yeah. Cool.
So I hate reading, so I usually watch and listen to things. So what I would recommend, I love physics. I think that a lot of people should learn physics because it teaches you how to think and a lot of fundamentals. So I would say, I like Brian Cox. He's a British physicist, and he does a lot in particle physics, and you learn a lot there.
And theoretical as well.
Yeah. And you can learn a lot. And, if you want to challenge
physics.
Yeah. If you want to challenge your brain to think, because we don't do a lot of thinking in the world in general. That's a good one to watch.
Brian Cox, you say. Brian Cox.
And as well as Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast.
Okay.
He brings in a lot of physicists, a lot of scientists across the disciplines who are brilliant. And, it's always interesting discussions. So I'd say that's one of the podcasts I also listen to. And I think my message would be, it's, I grappled a lot with whether I should stay here or in the UK or etc. And, I explained that the loud voices in the UK, the whisper is here. So I decided, okay, I'll just do both. No need to choose one.
Because you've got a visa for UK and also here, so you
Yeah, I can do both. But it's to listen to that whisper, because that whisper, it's your authentic self. It's your conscious. It's what Socrates called his daemon. Whenever he came to making a decision, he always consulted his daemon. So listen to that, because that's where you'll find your responsibilities, and you'll find that your moral responsibilities to yourself and to your family, your society and community and the world at home. That's where you find it. And in terms of the future and development, the future doesn't happen to you. The future just doesn't happen. You create the future. It's very possible for you to create the future. Just the future that you want, the future that you envision. So I think that's a very important message, because I think we don't say it enough in Botswana. We just watch things happen. Kgoromente has done this, and then it's just they've done it, and I guess it's just like this. But you can actually create the future. So I think that's one thing.
That's awesome.
One message that I'd really like to drive home.
Yeah.
Especially as in 2030 there'll be two types of businesses. Those that are out of business and those that are fully utilizing AI. So you can jump on this bandwagon and don't underestimate it.
And it's even outside of business, even governments.
Yeah, even
those who are
governments.
using AI and those who aren't.
Yeah.
You end up just being colonized.
Yeah. So I think that would be my message, that create the future that you want. Don't just sit back and let Kgoromente do it.
No, beautiful, guys. This has been really awesome. The insights, especially us touching on the broader AI in terms of what's happening in the world, the opportunities we are losing, where Africa is right now. And I think it provides a lot of opportunities it's a $1 trillion business in the coming
100%.
years. So I think it's important for the listener to know that you occupy your space, but there's thousands more spaces in the AI that, that's why the Silicon Valley, what Cape Town is doing, what Chile is doing in Santiago, creating an ecosystem of abundance of entrepreneurs. It's actually, then you create massive amounts of energy. And they say in Santiago in Chile, for the first 10 years when they boosted there, they very quickly got 5 unicorns going.
Look at that.
Just simply by facilitating, allowing other entrepreneurs to come into the ecosystem.
Maybe explain to the user what a unicorn is.
Unicorn. Okay, you guys are best at that.
$1 billion company.
It's a $1 billion company. That's what a unicorn
valuation.
$1 billion valuation. So I think we touched on that. Obviously, Orion X, you guys are terribly excited about it. I can see it, I can feel it, and I can say all the best. I know that you are on a fundraising
journey. I think we're going to be worth $1 billion in the next 18 months.
Okay.
I can assure you.
Be careful, I'm going to call you back.
You should.
That's our challenge. Like we said that.
These guys are waking up now.
It's our challenge, because we said, I was telling them that in the UK, I watch companies go from idea to $1 billion company in 18 months.
That's right.
And I'm like, why can't it happen here?
So
we challenged ourselves to do that.
We watch the
and
space.
Right now in 6 months, 7 months.
Yeah. Well, worth like
6, 7, 8 months of operation, but less than a year, already at 10 million valuation.
Yeah, USD, by the way.
Yeah, USD.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So, and it's just going to keep growing, especially since we're using this round to build our cluster of data centers and GPUs here.
So before we become too viable investors,
Yeah. I should talk to Salim, isn't it?
And I think this is also, an inspiration, a story that can inspire Botswana.
No, absolutely.
This is to Botswana, full-fledged, grew up here, etc.
Born and bred.
Yeah, born and bred,
in
100%.
Botswana.
Well, we haven't bred yet. We don't have kids yet.
It's a Botswana company, a Botswana startup, the first large language model on the continent, and raising funds. In 2023, only one startup in Botswana managed to raise outside funding, meaning funding from outside the country. Only one. Many tried, but only one. So it's that should change. But
when we have super multi-billion-dollar companies like your Botswana, your what?
Exactly.
And a company that in a country that's many years had budget surpluses. So it wasn't a lack of a good balance sheet.
It wasn't. It was a lack of action.
Invest.
It was a lack of action.
This should inspire people that, it's possible. Oh, okay. It's possible. As a Motswana, I can do things. No more.
And we don't take it for granted that we do have a bit of privilege in our backgrounds. Well, we don't take that for granted. And we're grateful for everything that we have. And like our models is like, help those who can't help themselves and leave people better than we found them. So in what we're doing now is hopefully that somebody can use this tool, learn something, build something, create something, or even use it to better their own life and, come out of whatever situation they're currently in as well.
No, it's a good point because the question is, are you guys sitting in a privileged seat by virtue of having gone to these fancy schools and you speak good English? And a guy sitting in the Sandveld and heading cattle your age, how should can you sit there and say, and they can reach those things, so now we have no chance?
I think the question should be restructured.
Okay.
Because I think these privileged schools, fancy schools, and this feud between private and public schools, I think the question should be restructured is, why aren't the public schools privileged schools? Why can't they be considered privileged schools? Why can't they be considered fancy schools? And then now we tackle that, and we all know the issues with the education system. Exactly. So that I think that's the question that should be asked. Not how are we? If privileged. You go to private school, you're privileged. If it's a fancy school, it should be, why aren't the public schools like that?
What's quite interesting about what you're saying is Harvard, Oxford, UCT, the top universities in the world are all public.
Yeah.
All public schools. So they're not private.
Yeah.
So
or
it's
University
like
of Pretoria.
So historically, public is always better than private. If you go to private, it's like, sorry, bro.
And I understand in Rwanda, public schools are very popular.
Yeah.
People are moving from private to public. So it's actually very possible.
So it's really just the context,
should be
the lens. Yeah. But how does it help us, or how the context in terms of opposition and how somebody who's in the farm, who's maybe like herding cattle or things like that. The truth is, everyone has their own journey and everyone has their own story. There are some individuals who would be doing that who are willing to want to learn things or change things. Not everyone needs to be a millionaire. Not everyone needs to be a billionaire, but you just need to be better than you were yesterday. And it's a journey. So us allowing it to be on SMS, that individual could learn how can they take care of my cattle better? How can I engage with my cows or my...
How can I check a particular disease or condition on a cow?
And if you have a smartphone, you take a photo and it tells you, this could potentially be what this is. Because you're in the Sandveld, this is a disease that's common in that area. The closest shop that can supply you is this, and this. Engage them, here's a number. Like we can help them in that regard. And now they have a stream of income that's sustainable. They can send their kids to the school or their brother to school. Their brother goes to school, comes back, and enhances everybody. It's a generational thing, but that's our contribution. And everyone else has micro contributions that work together.
Yeah. You guys have got so much wisdom for your age.
One of them is the one I love that powers me is like, it's by Alan Hirschfeld, a scientist.
Be the change you want to see?
Pardon?
Be the change you want to see, or there be inspiration?
be ashamed to die until you've had a meaningful contribution to society. And that, I think that's...
Be the change you want to be. That's Gandhi.
Mm.
That's Gandhi
Yes,
who said that, yeah.
Be the change you want to see,
Yeah. No, wonderful, guys. Thank you so much. And please, guys, I hope you appreciated the insights and the wisdom from the young guys. Please give them the support that you can, and not just them. Many other young people who are doing and they're crafting and they are putting hours trying to contribute meaningfully to the country, leveraging these emerging technologies such as AI. So support them as much as you can. You can influence policy. As they said, why can't government get equity, just like what other countries are doing, such that we can get this alternative business model compared to the one that has been so dependent on diamonds? So there we go. And please, I appeal to you, over 75% of you are still watching without subscribing. So please press the subscribe button, share, and let's get this growth well going. Thank you so much, and see ya.